Bitcoin has seen an explosive breakout towards 65,000. Will Bitcoin continue towards the 70k mark, or are we going to see a short-term correction? These are questions we're answering in today's video. Let's dive on in. Okay, MegaWhale team, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having an absolutely amazing weekend. In today's video, we are taking a look at the recent explosive breakout of the midline resistance of the macro descending channel, discussing whether or not Bitcoin is going to continue this momentum to the range high at 70k, or if we're going to see a short-term correction. We'll also be jumping into the short-term charts in massive amounts of detail, Bitcoin dominance, the total altcoin, and the total market cap. By the end of today's video, you'll have a detailed and well-rounded understanding of not only what is happening, but what is likely to occur next. Before we do get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos for Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion, pure raw TA. If that is the kind of content you're interested in, join us on Telegram. It is the first link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop of cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. If you are interested in taking your trading to the next level, you can join us in the VIP group. We post trading setups with exact entry prices, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, exclusive analysis, and everything you need to follow along. Look at all those profits we are absolutely printing over here. You can also get access to our group chats, our general chat, our trading chat and education chat, our news, our help, our daily video, and our trade setup chat. Go ahead and contact me in the pinned comment of the free channel by clicking my name or these links for more information. Again, our entire trading track record is available. 39 months of data, 81% win rate, 1,062 live trades. Check it out, guys, and let's jump on in. So taking a very brief look at the last 2 days of price action, Bitcoin was able to not only break above that major midline resistance of the macro descending channel, we were able to close a daily candle above it, which is fantastic. Historically, if we do look at the prior times we've closed daily candles, this instance here and our prior instance, both of these instances led to eventual continuations to retest the range high of the macro descending channel formation. That is very optimistic, and again, that is a very good thing to see, and we'll be discussing that in a lot of detail in just a moment. The short-term price action was able to break through that short-term horizontal consolidation, as well as, if you paid attention to our prior video, that RSI resistance. We saw a break of the RSI. Shortly after, we saw an explosive breakout of that consolidation, resulting in that move to retest near 65,000. Again, we'll be discussing in massive detail what to expect from here in just a moment. Moving over to the market data, taking a look, 24-hour volume is down 35%. Of course, it is the weekend at 104 billion. 24-hour liquidations down 41% and 104 million. 104 million in liquidations, 52 million coming from longs, and 52 million coming from shorts, nearly an exact 50-50 split. Moving to the DXY did eventually continue downwards. We were looking for a bounce toward that uptrend, that yearly uptrend. It doesn't seem like that will occur. It does look like we have continued through the support level, now retesting that low point at 100 on the dot, watching the upcoming week very closely. If we do see a loss of this sell side liquidity level, we are expecting a continuation as per marked on this chart towards that 99 level, that 99.6, 99.5, essentially retesting that July low over here. Again, the DXY is falling off a cliff over the last few days over here, a significant correction of around 4.5%. The S&P 500 is still looking very strong once more, while we do remain above the 5,300 level, particularly this top. We have that low point. We are expecting continuations into that $6,000 range. For us to then see that directional continuation, we need to break above that weekly high at around 5,680. Watching very closely at that level. If at any point we close a weekly candle below 5,300, which is this recent low, we would then expect a high time frame downtrend to originate, looking for retests of that 5,000 level. This would mark the initiation of a macro downtrend. We have been in a macro uptrend ever since we broke out of that resistance. This is macro uptrend. That would initiate the macro downtrend if that were to trigger. Until then, expect continuations 6,000 and potentially beyond. That is it, guys. Before we do get into the rest of our analysis, make sure to check out our links below. If you do want 15% off your lifetime trading fees, that can build up to 45% off depending on your trading volume. Sign up to BitUnix, BingX, and BitGet via my links below to get that discount. Also support the channel. You can find out more information about those exchanges in just a moment. We'll see you back in the channel in just a second. I'd like to introduce our partner, BitUnix. BitUnix is a global non-KYC, no country restriction exchange, making it a perfect exchange to trade on if you're from the USA, from Canada, the Netherlands, or just prefer to trade without KYC. This exchange is a futures and spot exchange with over 200 different trading pairs and some of the lowest fees in the game. If you sign up with my link down below, you'll get access to 15% off your trading fees, as well as an exclusive reward center where you can claim up to a multitude in USDT prizes. So go ahead and sign up with my link down below for 15% off, and I'll see you in there. Okay team, let's go ahead and get stuck back into it. So as we can see, Bitcoin has managed to close a daily candle above that descending midline channel. And we're going to be taking a look at this channel first and foremost, then discussing the key levels of resistance and support, and then jumping into the short-term price action. So as we can see, we had that daily candle close above the midline. And this is what we've been saying for a very long time. We've said for the last 20 or so days, while we did have this resistance, we've been saying on the daily close that breaks through that midline, we are very likely going to see a multi-$1,000 gain on Bitcoin. We're going to see a volatile move. We're going to see a strong move upwards, because the longer something acts as resistance, the stronger that reaction generally becomes when we eventually break through. As we saw over here, a strong reaction upon that breakout. As we saw over here, a strong reaction on that breakout. We have now also seen a relatively strong reaction on that breakout. If we're taking a look at what this means for the macro expectations of Bitcoin, while Bitcoin occupies the upper half of the channel, which is any price point above the midline resistance, which is now a level of support, the expectation is that Bitcoin will retest the range high, the downtrending macro trend line, which is sitting at a price point of just under 70,000, prior to retesting the range low. So that doesn't mean Bitcoin can't drop back into this range. It means that it's unlikely for us to drop towards that range low prior to retesting the range high. I'll give you an example of this. If we take a look at a scenario over here, this is the inverse scenario, which is we saw a breakdown of the midline, which will increase the likelihood of a range low retest, but then we saw a break back up. But since we saw the breakdown first, the probability was still a directional retest of the range low prior to a retest of the range high. So as we have seen historically over here within the last 5 months of price action, every single time we break above or below that midline point, we have seen directional continuations to range lows and range highs eventually. Now, this isn't like a rapid one-day candle upwards. This can take multiple weeks to play out. This is a 5-month-long range. So don't expect this volatility that we have seen develop as a consequence of the breakout of the midline to remain consistent the entirety of the way upward to the 70K region. What we can see as a matter of fact over here is that the upward range, this upper region, has a greater degree of historical resistance than that lower territory. In fact, the volatility, the bearish volatility, is greater on the lower side than what we see in terms of bullish volatility on the upside of the channel, as we do have a large amount of historical orders occurring within this range, and therefore we are more likely to find a period or a price range of decreased bullish volatility, which could result in slower gradual growth in price action, as we saw over here and as we saw over here, moving into that range high. We'll discuss that more in the short-term analysis in just a moment. But the key thing I really want to drill home and really want you to focus on over here is, historically, when we break above this level, which has now been a consistent trigger point for 5 months. We can't say it isn't. It is proven to be a consistent trigger. We do see that directional continuation eventually. So that is an important thing to note. While we remain above this midline, we are expecting a retest of the range high. When will that occur? Harder to answer. We'll try and answer that in the short term, but that is the expectation. Overall, a fantastic move for Bitcoin, a fantastic move for the cryptocurrency market as a whole. Let's talk about the bearish scenario. If we were to see any corrections develop, we could potentially see corrections develop towards that midline. Again, this midline is going to now act as a critical area of support. Take a look at this instance over here. We saw a break of the midline only to then come and retest the midline before a continuation. That is a very possible scenario. We could see a correction back towards the midline before a continuation back upwards. Again, we'll discuss that in the short-term analysis. If we are taking a look at the bigger picture, Bitcoin is very much still within this macro descending channel formation. This macro descending channel formation, as we have been saying this entire time, is a bullish consolidation pattern. It is a descending channel formation. It is representing that although we have been in a downtrend this entire time, the bearish momentum or the selling pressure has been decreasing during the period of this downtrend. The angle of the trend is not very significant. If we take a look at the angle of the trend, the price of which we entered the trend hasn't changed all that much, even from those low points, the lowest point reached in the channel. That is only about $1,000, $2,000 difference over here. It is not a very strong downtrend. It is a long downtrend, and the volatility is perpetuated, and the perception of the volatility is perpetuated by the fact that the depth of the consolidation is around 22%. So it is a very deep consolidation, meaning we see a lot of range low to high volatility, but in terms of horizontal, the trend is actually very sturdy, and that is a good thing. It's a good, strong indication of a good consolidation range. If we take a look at the expectation is going to be a breakout of the range high, will result in a directional move into the high $80,000 region, as per the measured move from the range high to the range low. We apply the depth to the breakout. That gives us an expected measured move target. Again, for that to occur, for this move to be expected, we need to break above the range high, a daily candle close we are looking for. Moving over to the macro charts, and then we'll jump into the short term. We can see here on the macro charts, another very important level we are watching is going to be that RSI downtrend, that weekly downtrend here on the RSI. You can see if I zoom it in a lot over here, we are basically coming into a retest. So we've had our rejections. We had rejection number 1. We had rejection number 2. Again, these mark some pretty critical levels, and we are now coming up to a retest that trend line. This is a representation of the momentum during the period of the last 5-month consolidation. It goes to bolster the claim I made before, which means this is a bullish consolidation. It is showing us visibly over here, and again, an indicator is just a visual representation of a derivative of the price action, that momentum has been declining, which is bearish, okay? But very importantly, we can see the range, okay, the depth of change between the low points and the high points are getting smaller. This is an indication of consolidation or bullish consolidation, which generally develops prior to bullish reversals. Furthermore, if we do see the momentum break this downtrend, or the RSI break the downtrend, that would be a representation that the momentum within this 5-month long period has now flipped positive for the first time. That would be a good indication of a potential reversal developing. So what am I saying? Am I saying there's no chance Bitcoin can go down? Absolutely not. But I'm saying based on the data available and based on the data we have, there is a greater probability we do eventually see a continuation. Will that occur on the next retest? Maybe. Will it occur immediately? Maybe. Are we going to see a strong move? Possibly. Could we see those corrections first? It is definitely on the table. The reason there's so much uncertainty in regards to what happens between the range high and range low is because we are in this consolidation. This is at some degree, if we were to put this on a horizontal scale, it is a chop zone, right? We are literally in a sideways chop zone. So we're always going to see price fluctuations between the resistance and the support. We have to use that data we have here in the weekly. We have to use our understanding of price action development to then assign probabilities, and where we are standing. And what we've been saying for a long time is if we break that midline, midline, which we have, we will see a greater probability of a continuation to range high. And if we break that range high, we will very likely see a continuation higher. Only if we see a daily candle close below the downtrending support, below here, would we be confident that this scenario will no longer play out. That is that, guys. Let's jump into the short term. The short term price action, pretty interesting stuff here. We can see we have flipped this major 200 SMA, the major midline resistance, which lined up with the horizontal range high. Perfect stuff. Great stuff to see. What we can see here on the 4-hour is Bitcoin is sitting above very slightly what was prior support, okay, turn to resistance, and we are now sitting just above this area of support. So Bitcoin does have a pretty small area of support over here around 63,000, low 63,000 range. And if we drop below this region, particularly this level over here, the upper range of that, we could see a short-term correction develop into that range high retest before a continuation. And that would mark that retest of that midline. As we saw over here, we could see that retest before a continuation. So we're watching for any signs of corrections there, particularly watching that support level. Provided Bitcoin is able to sustain above here, it is highly unlikely Bitcoin will actually see a correction again. We'll get into the shorter time frame in a second to discuss that. But if Bitcoin is able to sustain above this region, even sustain above this region, we are very likely going to see those eventual continuations into, you know, that 68,000, that $69,000 region. I'd be looking specifically at this price range over here. This, of course, was going to be our deviation above the range high. This is going to be our range high. So we're looking for a retest of this region. That is what we are expecting for Bitcoin. Let's move over to the immediate price action, to the hourly chart. We can see right over here, actually, let's go down to a 30 minutes, get a closer look. We can see we have had what is happening over here. Some pretty interesting stuff. Well, look at this last hour of price action. Pretty crazy, pretty large bounce actually from this low point. Okay, we might have a low point a little bit wrong over here. A little bit low down. We can see actually the low point's a little bit higher, just over here at, what is that, 63,550. A bounce from that low point over here. We can also see that the momentum has flipped back positive, which is a good indication, likely establishing this now as a support resistance flip, retesting its area of support and looking for that continuation higher. We do have some short-term resistances developing that we are retesting. We would like to break through that region before we'd expect any continuation higher. And of course, we can see if we do zoom out over here, even on a smaller time frame, looking at that VRPV, we can get a good indication of what the volume ranges are doing. We can see we do have a bit of a gap over here at around 65,000. We haven't quite touched that $65,000 mark. I'd be expecting a move into that 65,200 region if we are able to break through this region. So something around over here, just above that high point, looking for that retest into here before we then see a rejection and continuation. Overall, little choppy on the price action here in the short term. It is the weekend, of course, volume volatility all dropping. A lot of indecision occurring, but the key things I really want to focus on here, what I'm focusing on here, is going to be, once again, while we sustain above this 200 SMA, this midline resistance, which is now support, and even this prior support area, we are expecting continuations upwards, and any short-term correction that develops should be just that. It should just be a short-term correction before a continuation. Only if we drop below that midline, only if we break back below that midline, would I then be concerned again for potential continuations lower. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you in the next one tomorrow. See you then.